All right, hey, wanted to take opportunity to shoot a quick video. I'm over here at my parents' house. I'm gonna prune one of their pear trees while I'm here visiting. And this is some good information for those of you who have ornamental trees, how to properly prune them when they're young to avoid problems when they're older. So one of the first things to say is time to prune is best to do early spring before the leaves start to form, or late winter, but you can prune any time of the year once the leaves have fully formed, and it'll be acceptable. With young trees, you don't want to remove more than 1/3 of the living crown at one time. So that's a big rule to follow. Don't remove more than 1/3, and then as they get older, it gets progressively less. The reason I got my helmet on is because I also did some clearing of the buffer zone, the young forest, which is all around this. That's another thing, is plant in an area where these trees have their room to grow. If you want the tree to grow nice and full, and it's a tree that wants a lot of sun, if it's going to grow balanced, it needs a lot of space. If we didn't clear out these taller pines and tulips that are towering right behind this pear tree, then it's going to grow like this. That's one of the things that I did just now, and now we're going to prune some of these branches. When you're pruning, you want to select branches that are either damaged or rubbing or co-dominant. Ideally, you want to prune a tree to have one central dominant leader, which is the central trunk, and then you'll have scaffolding coming off of that for good architecture. And the pears are kind of prone to producing lots and lots of crowded leaders, and that's why they're so prone to split later on, is they form really tight included bark unions, and they're just a bunch of co-dominant stems, and eventually as it gets really heavy, it just starts to tear and fall apart. So you can prevent that by reducing the co-dominant stems and trying to train it to develop good architecture. So we don't want to over prune, so you got to space this out throughout multiple years. You don't want to over prune in a single year. So if you come in here, I'm going to show you one of the branches I'm going to remove. Okay, right here, this guy should go, because you can see it's rubbing right here. This little shoot right here is growing straight up. This little shoot right here, we don't want these shoots growing so straight up. We want this central leader to be dominant, and so I'm going to reduce some of the competition right here. Take my helmet off now. To do that, we either want to use loppers, hand loppers, or these bigger hand loppers, or a nice sharp hand saw. Silky is one of the best, but we're gonna start with the hand loppers. And these do have, depending on the side that you use, you can get closer. So you want to prune right outside that branch bark collar. I'm not going to prune this, I'm just trying to show you though. But if I have the blade facing this way, I can get closer to that branch bark collar than if I have the blade facing this way. So that's something to think about too. So getting in there and getting just outside that branch bark collar. You don't want to injure the parent stem trunk. Now that's called a branch removal cut, because we removed it all the way to the trunk. This would be a branch reduction cut. It's when we are not going to remove all the way to the trunk. I'm just going to remove that upright, okay, this upright which is competing with the main stem, and now we're going to leave this branch as some scaffolding. This is a fine union right here to leave, so we're going to leave that, but we got rid of these ones that were competing with the main stem. So that's a removal cut, that's a reduction cut. All right, this little guy out here, oh, I'll leave him for now. I don't really like him, but I'll leave him for now, and hopefully now that I've cleared out the space behind it, it'll start to go this way. You can always remove that one later. These two are definitely competing stems, so you kind of have to look at them and decide which one you want to get rid of. And remember, we don't want to remove more than 1/3, so this might be the last one that I do. 1 here, 2 here, and 3 here. This guy is clearly not needed to be in the group. It's between these two, and I'd say this is probably my main one. And then we've got another split right here. We could reduce this we could reduce this guy here. That would be a good decision, but not probably this season, because what I'm gonna do for this season is I'm just gonna get rid of this guy. Okay, and I'm gonna leave this out here for that balance effect. With a branch like this that's bigger, we might wanna reduce the weight of it first and then do our final cut right outside the branch collar. And that way, as we're doing our final cut outside the branch collar, we don't run the risk of this extra weight coming down and tearing down the stem of the parent stem. I do a little bit of an undercut. Okay, and I come on the other side and do a top cut. And be careful to not pull through. Once it falls out, that saw might continue pulling and you might hit another branch that you weren't trying to hit. Okay, so we're gonna leave this here. I've reduced the weight, so now I can come in and do my final cut right outside the branch collars. I'm holding it with one hand to kind of support that rocking motion. Right now, as I get closer here, I don't want to pull through and then damage that. So I'm going to actually just pull out and kind of do it from the other side a little bit. And then break that off. Stayed outside of this branch bark collar. I tried to mirror that. That's called the branch bark ridge right there. I try to mirror that with the angle of my cut, and that's a really good practice to do, to try to stay outside the branch bark collar. That'll promote this better. It's not really a healing, but we'll just call it healing. Trees don't heal, they compartmentalize. But it will help the branch heal for all intensive purposes if you stay outside that branch bark ridge and that branch collar. This is done for this season. We can come back in time, next season, and we can continue to reduce these codominant stems and establish good architecture on this tree.